Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Facts on the Ground. I am Misty Winston, and I am joined today. I'm very excited. There is a new new show out in the universe that is doing fantastic work that everybody should be checking out, Fred Hampton Leftists. And I am joined today by one of the members and hosts, RJ. RJ, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. I kind of know you a little bit from Twitter. We've been following each other for a while, but just for people who may not know who you are, where you come from, how you sort of got involved in politics and activism, can you just kind of give us a little bit of a brief history of who you are?
Yeah, I can just go over my political history in general. So, how I introduced in politics by everyone was basically 2008 with Obama, first black guy, really the most viable one to actually run for office and to win. I remember going to the polling station in 2008 with my parents, excited, stood in line, got the I voted sticker as a young kid, so I was very excited with that. But truly, how I became active in politics was the aftermath of 2016. Mainstream media itself said, oh, it's the Russians, smearing everybody as a Russian agent. And what surprised me is that they didn't actually tell the truth. And so in 2016, for me, I was still, a shit lib. I was conservatives, I was a shit lib, so I was still my shit lib face. So I was still wanting to actually learn about what happened. I didn't know about the DNC corruption with how they cheated out Bernie Sanders and all that. So then fast forward to around 2019, I truly became a leftist on the left. That's when I really became active, not only on left Twitter, but into understanding how this situation worked. Let's see. I started finding politicians I was thinking about supporting, especially in 2019. Many of them are controversial. The first one was Beto, because back then that was very bad. Beto was like, hell yes, we'll take away your guns. That was bad. I don't support him now.
Right.
I used to be a Mayor Pete stan. Oh God,
Oh my gosh,
that was
RJ.
terrible. I used to be a Warren stan, so that was even
Canceled.
that's
You're canceled.
yeah, I'm canceled. Warren stan, and I finally voted for Bernie because I was like, this guy has it all, the best policies. He stands up for working class people, 100% rating with unions. So I do support Bernie Sanders still, even though I do have some problems with him strategically. That's where I was at. I am involved with my DSA for my college. Also involved with Fred Hampton Leftists. I am now a communist. I used to be a socialist, and I've definitely moved farther to left, not only because of the pandemic, because of really all the billionaires hoarding all this wealth, using COVID to amass their riches while making the rest poor. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a journey, my friend, from Beto to Bernie, and now you're a communist. Speaking of communists, though, you can't see it, but I got my Rome shirt on. My
Oh,
piece of
that's nice.
commie.
Yeah, Rome.
Yeah, I was trying to represent but you can't see it. So I'm like, what the hell? But yeah,
Yeah, Rome is one of my mentors.
Rome's another host on the Fred Hampton Leftist show. You guys should definitely check him out. He is he gives no fucks. We'll just say it that way. And I love
Yeah.
him for it. So yeah. So now that we know a little bit about you, can you tell us a little bit about how Fred Hampton Leftist was formed? Like, who came up with the idea? What was the kind of planning process like? Were you guys all friends already and it just kind of sprung up organically? How did this all come about?
Well, it started off with me personally, with Nick, Socialist MMA on Twitter. I found
Hi,
him
Nick.
in really 2019. I think I first encountered with him, I didn't follow him at the time, was when Trump had analysis about how Bernie got cheated by the Democrats in 2020. And I think Nick commented, no lies detected. I liked it. I started following him ever since. And what really how we thought about creating Fred Hampton Leftists is we used to have a thing called the Black Rose Brigade. It was on Fridays. It was a panel of Black leftists. We had Savion on, we had Jackie Poles, we had Rome, we had Nick, we had CJ a couple times, and we liked it. And we discontinued it for a while, but then we all came back together and said, hey, this is actually something that not only people want to see, but people want to learn. And there's not many Black leftists and Black voices out there on the ethosphere, especially in media in general. And people need to hear our voices and our expertise. And so we kind of created a FHL, which is our nickname, but it's really a Fred Hampton Leftist. We created it, I believe, in late February. We did one debut episode, but we realized, we wanted to take a 1 month hiatus just so we can get everything situated, get our logo, actually get our message, what we wanted to bring across. And our debut episode, I believe, was So I think it was the 1st of April. So it was on April Fool's Day. So it wasn't actually a joke. It was a real, it was a real thing. And so that's kind of the brief history of how that began.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following. I think I've been following all of you on Twitter for a long time, and I know that Nick's kind of had like a similar journey to you. He used to be kind of a shit lib, and has made the journey into like real leftists, which I don't even know what that means. Real leftists. I mean, that term has been just butchered beyond comprehension. I mean, we now have
Well,
people.
apparently, real leftists are people who read theory. So apparently, there's a lot of
Oh, is
theory
that what it is
savers.
now?
Yeah,
Oh,
you have to
okay.
read theory. You can't be a door stand. Let's see. There's
Oh.
some people now. Well, it's just crazy. I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but it's just
No,
crazy.
because it's just a lot of it's a hot mess. It really is a hot mess.
Yeah, it's so problematic.
Yeah, it really is. And it to me, it's if your brand of leftism doesn't include imperialism, I'm not on board. Like you're not on the
That's
same
fair.
team. And that's I think a lot of the issue I have with like that whole divide is that there seems to be like the squad stand left who does not care about imperialism, and then there's like the left who actually understands that imperialism is bad. So yeah, one of the things I like most about the show, we were talking about this briefly before we started, but you have, a multitude of hosts. And so everybody's able to kind of have their own day. I mean, we were talking earlier, you actually have been like heavily involved. That's what I like about it, though, is that it gives each person a chance to kind of do their own thing in their own way, interview people that they want to interview. Was that kind of by design? Is that something that you guys wanted to do to give each person kind of their own show within a show, sort of, so that everybody could have their own space? Because I really like the way that works out.
Yeah, that was kind of the idea because when we first did our first show on Thursday, we realized, yes, we are black leftists, but we're not all the same. Everyone has their own different type of leftism. We have socialists, we have communists, we have populists. So everyone having their own show will give their own perspective. And regardless of where you are, you could be a black liberal or a black social dem, you can see someone resonate. And then once you agree with their positions, you can move farther to the left with our other hosts. So that was kind of the general idea for us having our own day to invite our own guests to talk about issues that we may have liked. And so recently, we talked about, even before, about the episodes I've been on. We've had Margaret Kimberly on. She's very versed on many different subjects. Someone that I admire, her experience and her subjects is so great. We recently, yesterday, did an interview with Thomas Frank. Um, we're going to be having one next week with Sabby Sabs. She's great
I'm
from the
interviewing
Sabby
her
Sabs show.
tomorrow.
Yeah, so that'd be great. And
Yeah.
I really think that it's great what we're doing because we're just giving our honest takes, our honest opinions. Most of the time, we don't even edit the videos; we just full send. So I
Yeah.
think we just try to be honest and get our message out the best way we can.
Yeah, and I think that it's really cool because each of you have your own. I mean, it's not like you guys agree on everything. So you're right. It does give your audience the opportunity to experience diverse opinions and positions, and hear about different issues that maybe they wouldn't necessarily hear about if there was just one or two of you. Because Rome might bring up something that you would never talk about, or Nick might bring up something that Rome would never talk about. And so I really like the way that it's a diverse coalition of leftist ideals, but it's all within one show, and it really is giving your audience, a variety, which I think is really it's a really unique way of doing it. I mean, I don't think I've ever really seen any other show do something like that. So when you guys are deciding who is going to interview who, are there ever any fights over who gets to interview Thomas Frank, or is it just like, you organize your own shows and everybody is just cool with it?
I mean, we do have a method in who we want to invite. Overall, the really, really, really big names, which we all know. In general, they're pretty difficult probably to get with because so many other independent media shows want to have on. But we kind of have a method to go. Like our interview with Thomas Frank, he's very nice guy, very good guy with his new book. A lot of people had him early, like Crystal Kyle and friends. I believe in many other different shows had him on earlier. So we believe that, okay, if we get him on now, maybe he could be available. So it's all about trying to find out when these people are available to have on. And then in general, I'm trying to think if we had some fights about it. Not really. Probably Ron Placona, Graham Elwood, there were some kind of fights about that. But in general, a couple of us were like, if it's something you really want, then we'll just let you have it. So that's just kind of how we are. We really nice. We don't really fight that much over guests.
That's good. I mean, everybody seems to be very chill. But sometimes there are going to be those guests where everybody wants to be the one, like I would have been fighting over Margaret Kimberly. I'm a huge fan. I actually just watched that interview that you did with her. I think I watched it yesterday. And it was very good. You did a great job. She's amazing. She's been an outspoken Assange supporter. She's actually included in there's a book that's like a compilation of different essays or articles or things written by different Assange supporters, and she has a piece in that book. So I'm very appreciative to her for her work. She's done a great job. So we have all been seeing how extreme the censorship has been getting on, especially, I mean, particularly YouTube, other platforms as well, but YouTube has really been like pretty nasty about it. I know your guys' show is relatively new, but have you experienced anything with YouTube, or have you had any issues? Because you guys like came out of the gate and like shot to 10K overnight. So have you guys experienced any of the censorship yet? Or I mean, have you managed to kind of slide under the radar for now?
Um, I would say, yeah, we've kind of managed to slide under the radar right now. We've had internal talks about, hey, what can you say that's appropriate, what not to say, just to purposely avoid that. I know it's sadly we have to censor ourselves before we even, publish information. But in general, we try to maintain a discipline, like not have some type of language. And yes, in other platforms, I've seen some censorship, which is worrying us. Like Status Quo, they created a video basically the opposite of the message that Trump was giving, and they got their video takedown just for debunking that. Like so just from debunking that type of misinformation, now you get deplatformed from YouTube. So we're looking right now to go on Rockfin soon, just to prepare, because you never know when it's going to come. Usually, when you post a video that you feel YouTube is going to be okay with, that's the one that gets struck. So
Yeah.
in general, we're just making sure that we have backup plans.
Definitely decentralize your platforming for sure. Odyssey is great too. And on Odyssey, the cool thing is you can link it to your YouTube. And so anytime you post something on YouTube, it's automatically also posted to Odyssey. So you don't have to double upload. And so it's just like an automatic backup. So yeah, but Rockfin's great. You guys should definitely be on Rockfin for sure. We're on Rockfin, MCSC's on Rockfin, and it's and they're just good people at Rockfin. Like they really are trying to take care of creators and like be creator focused, which YouTube has never been. So yeah, definitely decentralize all of your platforming for sure. So what do you guys like? Where do you see the show going? Like what kind have you guys had? Do you have like a mission statement, or are you just kind of winging it like Jesse and I have been this whole time? Like we're just really just winging it. Like we have no desire for like fame and fortune or anything. We're just trying to put out good content about issues that don't get covered a lot. So I mean, are you guys going to be focused mostly on the issues of Black socialism, which I would kind of expect, or are you going to kind of branch out and cover all aspects of politics?
It's actually a little bit of both, because traditionally it's kind of hard, I say, a little bit for really Black politics in general, especially a lot of times people trust like in mainstream media, especially, which is common. So we want to actually amplify Black leftist voices in general, and show them that hey, there is an alternative to the mainstream media. Here's what's actually going on. And so yes, you're right. We do want to actually talk about Black socialists and also Black leftists, which we do mention a lot. We're also going to, like me on my show, I'm going to be talking too about like American history. I'm going to talk a lot about, hey, this was, yes, people want to claim that the New Deal was great, but here's why it wasn't so good for Black people during that time period. And so I believe too that we're all about amplifying Black leftists, Black voices, but also in forms of class solidarity. Class solidarity. So it's kind of a mixture of amplifying Black socialists, but also still maintaining that message that Fred Hampton had himself.
Yes, because that I have long said Fred Hampton was one of the most influential people in my personal radicalization. I was like 15, I think, and I had to do this school project, and they give you, like here's a list of people that you can choose from, and you have to do a project on that person. And this is going to be really shallow, but I'm going to admit it out loud. I chose Fred Hampton because I thought he was hot. I was 15 and I didn't know, you know what I mean? I'm 15. Like I didn't give I didn't care. I wasn't into politics. I didn't give a shit. So I chose him because I thought he was cute. And that's really embarrassing, but that's the truth. But I did this project on him, and then when I learned about him, that really was like a turning point in my life, like learning about um his mission and the way that he was attacked and the way that the Black Panthers were attacked, and the way that they sought to really be for the people in a really like solid and concrete way, like the breakfast program and all of that stuff. It was really centered around community, which has always kind of been where I thought things should be. And so, yeah, I mean, doing that project in whatever it was, 10th grade, was really like a turning point in my own personal radicalization, I would say. So I'm a big fan of Fred Hampton and the Black Panther movement in general. So yeah, but I agree with you that it's really, I always feel really weird talking about stuff like this as like a white woman. It's so annoying, but you're right. It really is a problem in independent media. There are really no, not just there's no Black voices, there's no minority voices, really. It's a bunch of white people talking about politics. So when you guys first started your show, I was super excited because I really think that this is like a long overdue thing, and I can't think of like better people to be doing it. Like you guys are all really solid people. You seem really solid in your politics, open to learning. Like you're not completely shut off from talking to people who maybe you don't disagree with, or maybe you don't agree with, which I think a lot of people get stuck into that whole thing. So how do you think we can work to kind of change the lack of Black voices of color in media in general, but specifically in independent media, because there really is a lack of it. And it's kind of confusing to me, because I feel like that should be something that as leftists, we should be willing to lift up.
In general, I feel like a lot of times they're kind of hidden, not purposely, but just starting off. Do you know about the writer Irami Ose Frimpong? She goes on the Hill show with Crystal Ball
Oh, I don't
on
watch that
Rising.
show. Yeah, I
So
don't watch
he's
that show.
very, you should look him up. He's very intelligent. So he's in black media too. So he's very good. And in general, the advice I would give is like, don't really go about like the pandering route, like say, hey, let's just, have this guy to come on and talk. Actually bring him on if he's the best about a certain issue.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I like to go about it. And like to me, I really think I'm pretty balanced on a lot of issues, but in general, I'm still open to learn. A lot of times people who disagree with me, I learn from them and vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the route you should go. And also too, Justin Jackson's very good. He has very
I
good points,
love
and
Justin.
I believe it's great what independent media is doing, having him on to bring a different perspective. Because I've learned a lot from him. Like even when AOC was going through some troubles with Forced to Vote, Justin Jackson made some valid points, and a lot of people, even if you hated, Jimmy Dore, at least people listen to him and say, hey, he's making some good points. I respect that.
Yes. Well, Justin's very good at and it may be his media training from the NFL, but he's very good at getting his point across in a very calm, reasonable, rational, like he doesn't get super fired up. And he's very good at just talking to people. And not being condescending or rude or anything like that, but just having conversation. He's very, very good at that. And I still, he came on our show, and I still can't believe he, like, months and months ago too, like when we were just starting out, and it was so kind of him to do that. But I'm like a big nerdy college football girl, so I was so excited. Plus my nephews now think I'm like the coolest person on planet Earth because I got to interview Justin Jackson. So he got me cool ant points, which I definitely appreciate for sure. But yeah, I think Justin Jackson has been amazing. He kind of came out of nowhere. I remember when he first really started tweeting like political stuff, and I was like, okay.
That's how I felt.
Like,
I saw him on Twitter a couple of times. I'm like, who is this guy? A
I
football player
know.
that's a
I see.
leftist, top ranked
I
football
knew who
player?
he was because he played for Northwestern. I'm an Ohio State fan, so we're both in the Big Ten. I went to the Big Ten championship game when Northwestern played Ohio State. Ohio State won. So I knew who he was, but then like when he started tweeting political stuff, first of all, he deserves an immense amount of credit because being in the NFL, that's a pretty courageous thing to do. He really took a risk by being public with his politics. That's not always easy. And especially, I mean, he has publicly come out in defense of Julian Assange, which is really ballsy. So yeah, he's definitely one of my favorite new people in independent media. I'm so glad that he's seeing so much success. He deserves it. I'm so glad you guys are seeing so much success. Like, it's seeing you guys shoot to 10K like that. It was like, what, a week? I'm like, Jesus, what is happening?
Yeah.
What's happening here? But you guys all have like decent Twitter followings, and that's very helpful when you're trying to build a show, for sure. So moving forward, is the format going to stay pretty much the same? Are you guys going to have, I'm sorry, my microphone just like keeps like drooping.
Oh, you're fine.
It's so annoying. I keep fucking with it and it's just so annoying. But yeah, is the format going to like pretty much stay the same, like where everybody's kind of got their own little slot and then you can just kind of pop in and out? Because I really do love that format.
Yeah, the format's it's definitely going to stay the same. It gives everyone a lot of freedom too.
Yeah.
It's also going to stay the same as our Thursday show. If we do decide to have a big guest, they may join us on our Thursday show. That's for that. But in general, for our days of content, we can do it pre-recorded, we can do it live. Recently, we've been using a program called Haps. It allows us to live stream on all our platforms, from YouTube to
Nice.
Twitch, all at the same time. We don't have to do out any "Hey, we're on" tweets. It just does it all for us. So it's a
Yeah.
great way for us to help out. And I'm the scheduler for all our interviews, so that's kind of my job
Oh,
behind the scenes.
oh,
So
that's a lot. That's a lot.
yeah, it's a
It's
lot.
really, it's stressful. It's stressful to keep it all straight. It's hard to, do you also book all the guests too, or do you all kind
Yes.
of, yeah. Okay. Cause I usually do that too. So I get really nervous about asking people to come on. So I like, will suddenly get like this giant burst of courage and I'll ask like 25 people at once. Don't do that. I will recommend don't do that. It's not
Yeah.
a good plan. Okay. So I want to like talk about some issues because there's, I mean, a lot going on, I think it's fair to say. So I don't really know. I think, I mean, obviously I would like to start with Julian Assange. Today's the 2-year anniversary of him being essentially kidnapped from the Ecuadorian embassy and, you know, trafficked to Belmarsh, which is a high security supermax prison. We know where terrorists, literal terrorists, are held. They call it the Guantanamo Bay of the UK. It's not a nice place. And he's a journalist. He's has no history of violence. He's an intellectual. He's a passive dude. He's autistic. And he's being held in the most brutal of conditions. You know, have you been following the Assange case much? Do you, you know, what I'm assuming you support Julian Assange and the defense of press freedom. Most leftists should, or you know, all leftists should. So yeah, what's your take on the Assange case? What do you think is going to happen coming up in the near future with what's going on there? Do you ever think that they're going to let him out?
Me personally, I am in support of Julian Assange. Like, I must be honest, I don't know as much as I should. So if you're on Twitter and you want to call me out for it or educate me, feel free. I
I
respond to
will.
peer pressure well. I respond to learning more. The most I know about him is personally, I was watching Useful Idiots with Katie Halper, Matt Taibbi. They described how long he's been in there for, what his wife and his kids had to endure. His wife, even when she was pregnant, she had to really hide her pregnancy in the assembly he was in. Even when they had kids, they had to use a proxy to see his own kids. What's strange to me is I found out that even the people at the assembly, in order to get his DNA, they literally took the diaper of his
Mm-hmm.
kid to try
Mm-hmm.
to do that. And I'm like, this is ridiculous to go after this man. And in terms of press freedom, even the case that everyone's referring to, if Julian Assange is wrongfully, accused of that, that is a big blow, not only to journalism, but to independent media in general. And in general, I'm in support of Julian Assange, but if it goes south, I mean, that's not going to be good for independent journalism. I mean, who's going to check the establishment? No one.
Nobody.
And
Nobody. And
the falsely use of what's that one act? I'm thinking of the
the
act. I can't remember.
Espionage Act.
Yes, so the false narrative about how that's being used is terrible.
Yes.
So that's
And
my opinion.
the Julian Assange case, you mentioned that they, you know, stole the baby's diaper and things like that. There, the CIA essentially, through Sheldon Adelson, hired a security firm that they implanted into the Ecuadorian embassy that was, pretending to be running security for the embassy, which was bullshit. They were essentially just there to spy on Julian Assange. There were cameras and microphones everywhere, including the women's bathroom. So that includes the conversations that he was having with his lawyers, which is a human rights violation. The number of human rights violations in this case against Julian Assange are numerous. And any one of them should be enough to throw the case out the window and set it on fire. So the fact that it's continuing is really depressing. And you're absolutely right. It will destroy investigative journalism. It will destroy it. National security journalism will never be the same. It's already had quite the chilling effect. I mean, you see there are journalists who won't even say his name, won't talk about Julian Assange, won't cover him, won't come to his defense. And he's one of theirs, and they won't even defend him, knowing that if it happens to him, it will happen to them. So yeah, it's a really big problem. And independent media, we've all been seeing the increased censorship that independent media has been facing. I mean, people are getting deplatformed, demonetized, suppressed. The algorithm doesn't pick anybody up anymore. You have people like Chris Hedges, who has seen, like the views to his website drop by half or more. And he's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. It's insane, the level of censorship that we're seeing, and it's only going to increase. And this really is, kind of the turning point. It's one of those moments in history where we're going to go one of two ways, and it's going to make all the difference. So yeah,
your screen froze, by the way.
Did it?
A little bit. Okay, it's back.
Okay. My internet is legitimately terrible. It's like the worst possible internet I think you can have and still like run the internet. It's so bad. So yeah. Okay. So let's talk the squad. Let's dive in. What are your thoughts on the squad and their performance or lack thereof thus far?
Well, the squad in general, do I believe they're bad in ways? Yes. Do I believe they're good in ways? Also, yes. But here's my perspective on the squad. They're social dems for the first part. And it's okay. The good thing is, let's start with the good thing. The good thing is they're still in support of the policies we want. The problem is that they're now the left's establishment. Now, hear what I'm saying. The actual left, the socialists, the communists, they're our establishment now. We have to fight them to fight Nancy Pelosi. See, that's the problem. We thought we were going to use them to fight Nancy alone. Now she wants to be the centrist between the two.
Yeah.
And her idea, well, not just AOC. Well, the reason why everyone's picking on AOC to clear this up is because she's always the first one to comment out of all the House progressives.
And she's
so that's why she
like
gets
the
all
most
the visual
visible.
hatred.
She's always the most visible. She's running, Twitch streams and Instagram lives, and she's constantly in people's faces. That's why people focus on her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so just to clear this up even further, the one mistake I feel like the House progressives are doing is trusting the establishment. They've tried it twice. They tried it under the CARES Act, even though there's arguments too whether they voted for it or not. I don't want to get into that because even I could be wrong. If I am wrong, correct me. Even for like the latest coronavirus relief bill, they said, hey, we're going to get $15 minimum wage in this, and the main argument too is that they're trying to play a moral game inside an amoral political system. So their view is like, look, we can't vote against this bill because then we hurt families at home, hurt people who actually need the money. Well, in reality, they're supposed to play hardball. You're actually supposed to act like you don't give an F in order to get more. That's what Joe Manchin does, what every other conservative does.
That's politics.
That's how it works.
You don't get what you want by capitulating. That's not how that works. And you're right. Like when the squad first came up, the whole point was these are the people, they came from the Bernie movement that had just been royally screwed over by the Democratic Party, not by the Republican Party, by the Democratic Party. And the point of them was we're going to go to Congress and we're going to challenge the Democratic Party establishment. And instead of doing that, they spend all of their time talking about how shitty Republicans are and never challenge the Democratic establishment. They've never one time launched like a legitimate challenge to anything that's happening right now. There have been like some tepid arguments where they might kind of like put out a strongly worded tweet or something, but there's been no real fight. They haven't fought for anything. I think your assessment of them is generous, so I'm going to push back on it because I think they're straight up sheepdogs. They know
Oh, I agree with
exactly,
that.
yeah, they know exactly what they're doing. I don't think that they're good actors in any way, shape, or form. And I don't want to lump them all together. I think that there are moments where like Ilhan Omar shows like this little bit of courage, or Rashida Tlaib on a couple of different occasions has shown like a tiny bit of courage. And I hope that maybe that will continue. I doubt it though, because the longer you're there, the more entrenched you become in the corruption. And but I think AOC specifically is 100% sheepdog. She knows exactly what she's doing, and she is essentially working for the Democratic establishment to keep the quote unquote left appeased and quiet. And she's like the little bit of glitter that they throw at you on top of the shit sandwich that they're serving. And I think that they're dangerous. And it's really disappointing because like people get super pissed at me because I don't support AOC and I'm really harsh on her. I donated to her campaign. I supported her in 2017, 2018 when she was running. Like I was cautiously optimistic about her, but one of her first votes ever was to expand and fund NATO. That's a red flag, fam. That's not a
Yeah.
good thing. That's not good. And then when she praised John McCain, and it's just like this, one right after the other of these things that she's done and said, that it just doesn't go along with what she is purporting to be fighting for. And force the vote was really telling to me. You have a tiny window and this tiny amount of actual political leverage that you could have used. And I'm not saying that it would have even necessarily been successful. I don't know if we would have gotten a floor vote. It may have ended up with a Republican as the Speaker of the House. Really, though, we now have a Republican as the Speaker of the House. So what would we have really been out? Nancy Pelosi is a Republican. And she's a Republican who has been there for fucking ever. And so she has like this level of power and control that a new Speaker of the House wouldn't have had. So I would have been quite fine with that. But the fact that the squad wouldn't even bother to almost try to fight, it's just so frustrating. And to me, the conversation was always strange to begin with because we shouldn't have even had to ask them to consider not voting for her. No progressive should ever be voting for somebody like Nancy Pelosi under any circumstances, unless she comes to you with like a laundry list of shit she's going to give you for people. That shouldn't even be a thought. Like that. No, Nancy Pelosi. No, that's just wrong. You don't do that. So, yeah, the squad I think is very problematic. And hopefully, I think that over the past, since Force the Vote, really, I think a lot of people have really started to wisen up to that a lot, which is nice to see.
The problem with really the squad in general is that they're incremental institutionalists.
Mm-hmm.
They're incremental institutionalist progressives. They believe that okay, the left hasn't really had a political structure, a political institutional structure in decades. So they feel that they want to create one to funnel grassroots people in them. But the problem is you're doing it in the Democratic Party, who itself is the big bubble that you're trying to create inside of to try to overtake it. And we've seen through evidence that even with the Bernie campaigns, you can see what they're trying to do, Kashama Sawant in Washington right now. It's not working.
No.
And that's what they believe they are. See, they believe that the same rules pre 1990 is what they can use now to gain power. Pre 1990, a lot of the power that was in Congress was by the committee chairs. Bernie's the budget chair. And before then, what the speaker would do for each party is that they would consult with the committee chairs. Hey, should we go this route? Is this what you guys want to do? The committee chair then tells the rest of Congress, hey, this person could be the leader. That became the leader. But ever since, I don't know, what was it, the DNCL Council, the Democratic Leadership Council, all the power went to the party leadership. So their action of trying to get committee chairmanships and ranking committee members and all
Doesn't
that type of
matter.
stuff, and it doesn't matter because you
Mm-mm.
need Nancy Pelosi's permission. So I completely agree with you that that strategy is wrong, and they should try to use more outside tactics. But their
Yes.
inability to listen to their base, not only people who give them money, and also what I thought was pretty disgusting is I don't care if you are fearing of being the minority party and you want to help the party. But if you're taking money from grassroots organizers, though, and
Oh,
you say that you don't take PAC money and you're funneling them to corrupt Democrats, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it just doesn't make
Corrupt
sense to me.
Democrats who are like ex-CIA, who like are like clearly on record publicly against Medicare for all and against a $15 an hour minimum wage. You're giving grassroots money to those people. It's so gross. I can't even stand it. And the people are like, oh, well, she's just trying to help the party. We got to maintain the majority. For what? What good does it do? The Democratic majority doesn't do shit for us. They just make excuses and then use Senate parliamentarians or Joe Manchin as like their fall guy as to why they can't ever get anything done. It doesn't matter. And it's super funny to me that they thought that, trying for, oh, but we can get, powerful progressives into committee positions. And how'd that work out? Because you voted for Nancy Pelosi and then she removed you from your committee. I mean, it doesn't take a
And
genius.
then when she applied for a new committee spot, her own coworkers in the House voted against her. And
Yeah,
the funniest part is that I was watching a video on the Jimmy Dore show. He even said that one congressperson who was a conservative Democrat last cycle, or the last congressional cycle, went against Nancy Pelosi for something. And
that's who
this
got it.
cycle, she's the one who actually got the committee seat over AOC. So
Isn't
it's
that
like, what are you
amazing?
doing?
And it's such a direct, like it's a direct shot at AOC and at progressives. And there have been like tons of them. I mean, there was the one time when Nancy Pelosi said something about, oh, who cares about them? There's only 4 of them. That's as many votes as they get. Nobody cares. There's been plenty of times where Nancy Pelosi has said things like that, where calling it the green dream or whatever. And I mean, Nancy Pelosi has like publicly shit in their faces on numerous occasions, and you're still going to back her. You're still going to support her. To me, that's so obviously weak, and it's so obviously, I don't know if it's fear, I don't know if it's they're just capitulating, I don't know if it's careerism. I think it's probably different for each member of the squad, because I don't think that they're a monolith. I think that first of all, lumping Ayanna Pressley into the squad is super bizarre to me. She's not progressive in any way, never has been. She was a Hillary Clinton surrogate and she supported Elizabeth Warren. She's not a progressive. She trashed Bernie Sanders in 2015, 2016,
I
like
saw the
called him a
video.
sexist. Yeah. And people are trying to pretend like she's a squad member. That just seems silly to me. But like I consider Ro Khanna to be kind of a peripheral member of the squad. And now we have like Cori Bush and who am I forgetting? Jamal Bowman. Is that it? Is that all they got? They only got the 2?
Mondaire Jones.
Okay, yeah. I knew I was forgetting somebody. Wow. I mean, like my friend Steve Poikonen says it all the time, that the political system in this country is like a machine, and it's a machine that was designed to kill you. And every couple of years, we seem to think that we can like slap a couple shiny new parts on this machine and it'll be okay. But the machine's still designed to kill you. And yeah, that's why I don't personally believe the electoral politics is really the way to go for like real change. What's your thoughts on that? There's like been a lot of debate about tactics, we'll say. There's been a lot of actual just full-blown fighting about tactics, actually. There are people who hate Jimmy Dore because he wants to hold progressives accountable and push them to do more. And then there are people who love Jimmy Dore and think that that's a no-brainer and that obviously we should be pushing those people. What do you think? What do you think? Are electoral politics a worthwhile venture? Even like third party? Do you think third parties are viable?
I think it's essential to have third parties because it gives people something to vote for. Like, look at the. I hate to go off topic a little bit, but look at the ballot initiatives, like
Mm,
for to legalize marijuana, um, stuff like that. It gives people something to vote for. It actually increases voter turnout. And if you're going to legalize marijuana, a lot of times, hey, Green Party, so
yeah.
people may do that. And in terms of leftists fighting about strategy, you could basically divide the left into 2 sections: the institutionalist leftists and the revolutionaries. And here's why. You have some people like, TYT or Sam Cedar. They're pretty institutionalist. But the flaw they have is that they believe that the left actually has a big institution inside the Democratic Party they can wield against. We don't.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, you also have the revolutionary Twitter. They're the ones that are pushing really the squad members, the House progressives to be more aggressive, right? And we have all these debates about strategy. Like, we saw Sam Cedar go on Bree Joy's show saying, oh, why do force a vote when we could do all this other stuff? And it's like, yeah, Sam, we agree. But the issue is we're not there yet. We haven't even taken over the system. If we take over the system and the party as leftists, then we can incrementally do that. But we can't do that when we don't have power, because then we're at will, and all our initiatives that we want to do will be nuclearized by the party, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of a little bit more revolutionary. And just to get back to your main question about do I believe in electoral politics? A year ago, I was 75-25. So 75% I was for electoral politics, 25% grassroots. Um, During the BLM protests, surely at the end of 2020, I was 50-50. Now I'm 75% grassroots, 25% electoral politics.
Yes.
And the reason why I believe that is I believe too that we need a general strike, especially since all the billionaires are hoarding all the wealth. Working class people are struggling. It's really the only tool we have in our only big tool we have in our bag to crush the entire capitalist machine to get what we want. And I do believe electoral politics can be still useful, but we have to have good strategies. I don't think the squad and House Progressive, especially fucking Rokana, he really pissed
Oh.
me off.
Oh.
Like his strategies in general, and the House Progressive Caucus, I mean the Congressional Progressive Caucus needs new leadership. I mean, who the fuck is Mark Pocan? Like, we didn't figure out who this guy was until,
He's not
of course,
progressive.
Jimmy. Yeah, I mean, and even Rokana said himself he's not a socialist or a communist, and I'm like, okay, look, but look, this one argument you could say, who gives a fuck if you're that? But if your strategy is shitty too, then you're useless to us,
Yes.
So what's the point of you being there? So that's my answer. I'm 25% electoral politics right now, 75% grassroots organizing. I'm with DSA. I've been attending socialist alternative Black Caucus meetings. I used to be involved with MPP a little bit. Now I've kind of just distanced myself a little bit. But mostly I'm dealing with Fred Hampton Leftists to get our leftist message out. Lately, our project my personal project I'm doing is slowly telling liberals, hey, what Biden is doing is not necessarily good. And I'm also going after conservatives too, because if you are Trump anti-war, pro-job, healthcare Trumper, and you're watching the Republican Party not even try, and also Trump didn't give a fuck either, I'm going after you too. So I'm going
Yes.
after liberals, conservatives, MAGA
Thank
for your
you.
own shitty politics.
Thank you. But they're going to call you a Nazi collaborator because that happens to me all the time.
Or a Russian agent if it's a
Yes, or
liberal.
a Russian agent. Yes, I get that a lot too. Lord Putin is very generous, though. He's very nice. He pays well. Yeah. So that's actually, I'm really glad that you brought that up because that's something I wanted to talk to you about because there's been a lot of talk about Fred Hampton and whether or not he worked with certain people or whatever. And it really doesn't matter to me because the argument to me is ridiculous on its face. Those people like myself who say that we should reach out to Trump voters or to conservatives, I'm not saying let's go attend a KKK party and make friends. There's like a whole lot of space between like your average run of the mill middle class Trump voter and like actual Nazis. There's a
Right.
lot of room in there. There's a lot of people in there who are just disaffected, hardworking Americans who have been propagandized to be mad at the wrong people and the wrong things. And I'm in small town Ohio. I'm literally surrounded by those people, and
Oh,
they're
I'm in
not.
Michigan. I know how you feel.
Oh, okay. But they're really not bad people. Are they casually racist? Yes. Is that a problem? Absolutely. Will I call them out for that every time? But they're not like irredeemable racists. They're not these people who we should just completely turn our backs on and forget about because if we need numbers, we need people. And those people really do want a lot of the very same things that we do. Again, they have just been given a different line of propaganda. They're Fox News viewers. They think that, Mexicans are stealing their jobs and all of those terrible things that you hear on Fox News. And especially as a white person, I feel like if I don't use my white privilege to go into white spaces and attempt to change those minds, what kind of ally am I? And so it's weird for me to get shit on for, wanting to make those attempts. Will I be successful? I have been in the past. I have converted some people to different ways of thinking. My mother-in-law is a good example. She now supports Medicare for all. She now supports Julian Assange. And that took work. Are there going to be people who just don't want to hear it? Of course. I mean, I'm just one person and not everybody has an open mind, but it feels like that's something that a lot of people don't even want to consider doing. So for you, why do you think it's necessary and good to have those conversations with people that we don't necessarily agree with on everything?
Well, how I talk to people and convert them is I talk about American history. And a lot of it starts really with from 1930s really till now. It's like a large scope, I understand. And how I convert people is I talk about how race and class is a tool used by the bourgeoisie to keep the proletariat oppressed. And so when I talk to people who are right wingers, I have friends who are Trump supporters. I didn't know that they're Trump supporters until after the fact. And so I start having conversations why. And even if you have a conversation about race, I tell them, look, about race specifically, race has been a tool used so that if you are a white working class person, if you believe that you're making slightly more than the average black man, you believe, okay, I'm doing good. While the rich oligarch is taking the wealth we will be making away from all of us, right? And so I
Mm-hmm.
tell them about how race is impacted in America institutionally, how it hurts people, right? And in terms of the class issues, look at the automotive industry. Automotive industry, especially in the Midwest, got decimated. Black,
Mm.
white, it's terrible about what happened. So those are the conversations I have with the Midwest about, especially manufacturing. Manufacturing, especially for African Americans, hey, you can make quick money overtime. You got unions. It was
Mm-hmm.
great. My grandma, she used to work for Ford, and she got her retirement, her pension, great health care. She doesn't worry about shit for the rest of her life. And so that's what I'm saying. Hey, if you want that shit back, you got to get unionized. You got to get radicalized. You got to hit the streets. And even if you don't hit the streets, just do political education. That's what I'm doing right now. You don't always have to be on the streets. If you can talk to grandma, you can talk to the person who you work with about these issues. That's how you can talk to. And the main advice I give people is find that tiny, 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 tiny thing you agree with the Trump supporter on. I know it's hard, but open their eyes a little bit and then expand upon it. You don't want to
Yes.
hit them with something all at once because it's difficult to process. Lord knows I know how difficult that is to process. I went from conservative to shit lib to progressive, social dem, left socialist communist. So it's hard.
Yeah.
So you have to have those conversations and break it down, starting with what you agree with. Then, yes, you debunk them. So people are watching. Where's the debunking come in? Yes, you debunk their bullshit first. You debunk their bullshit too. But you must start with something you agree with so that when you have those open conversations, because if you
Mm-hmm.
have a conversation with someone and they're uncomfortable or they feel like you're attacking them, you're not going to find nothing you agree on with.
Do you think your
So that's just
past,
my,
you said you used to be conservative, right? Do you think that that
yeah.
helps you in speaking to conservatives? Because I've never been a conservative person. So, like, not even close.
Yeah.
So, I feel like it's sometimes hard for me to know where to start with them. Because there's so much I just don't understand about their way of thinking. But I have found,
Well,
in
conservative in terms of like conservative Democrat, because my dad's a conservative Democrat. My mom's pretty
Oh,
conservative.
okay.
She's from the South. She's more that type of conservatism. I'm not really necessarily familiar with,
Like a
Republican
right
conservatism. That's
wing. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That
yeah.
makes more sense then. But yeah, like for me, I have noticed though, like you said that, maybe it might be hard for you to find something with a Trump voter on. I actually think it's really not, because seriously, a lot of Trump voters want Medicare for all. A lot of Trump voters want an increased minimum wage. A lot of Trump voters want, better education for their kids or a jobs program, or there are a lot of things that right wing people support that if you, and it really just depends a lot on the way that you frame it. If you come in and say like, hey, do you enjoy this communist policy of fill in the blank, then they're going to be like, no, fuck the commies. But if you like bring it up as like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if everybody could go to the doctor when they're sick, they're like, yeah, like what, yeah,
Yeah,
let's do
I
that.
agree.
So it really is a lot. Just, I mean, I'm no expert, but just in my experience in talking to Trump voters or more like right leaning people, there's actually a lot that we agree on. Again, they've really just been propagandized to death. And
Right.
everybody in this country has to some. I mean, it surrounds you
Exactly.
all day, every day. You can't escape it. You know, you're propagandized from birth. You have to recite the Pledge of Allegiance all throughout school, and I mean, it's shoved into your brain from the moment you're born. You can't go to an airport or a doctor's office or get your oil changed or anywhere without mainstream media being shoved in your face. So that's a problem. I mean, that really, and that's, I hate to circle back to Julian Assange again, but that's kind of what I do. But that's what makes what's happening to Julian Assange and the fight for press freedom again so important, because if you don't have the ability to challenge the official narrative, then they have complete narrative control, and that should terrify everyone. These are people who have lied us into how many wars, and it's not like we don't know. They've been caught. I mean, we know that weapons of mass destruction was bullshit. We know the Gulf of Tonkin was bullshit. We know the incubator babies were bullshit. They've lied us into numerous wars. They lie to us constantly. They laugh about it. I mean, you have the director of the CIA saying, you know, we lie, we steal, we whatever, whatever. James Clapper lied to Congress. Nothing happened to him. It's on camera, and nothing happened to him. So the fact that we want to give these absolute psychopaths who are in charge 100% control of narrative is that terrifies me. They're not good people, and they don't have your best intentions at heart. I did want to circle back though, because you did talk a little bit about a general strike. For me, I think I am all on board for a general strike. I've been calling for it for years, literally. But to me, I feel like if we're going to do a general strike, we need to first focus on mutual aid. You know, if we are
Correct.
going
I
to
100%
have,
agree.
yes, if we're going to have a sustained movement where people are going to be in the streets for weeks, maybe months at a time, we are going to have to be able to take care of those people. So what is I mean, obviously you just said you agree with mutual aid being something we need to focus on. What are your thoughts on how we might do that? You know, are there any mutual aid groups that you in particular like or have seen or, you know, have worked with yourself? You know, what's just your general thought on mutual aid and its impact moving forward?
I think mutual aid is definitely great. You know, especially since we know the state won't help you, so we only have each other. You know, and if you look at, I know we talked earlier about really the Black Panthers Party with giving a breakfast to kids with their their breakfast program. We should do something similar like that, especially for mutual aid. It would definitely help all of us out, especially during this time. You'll be imagine how many times I see on Twitter where how you have like GoFundMe's for so many people. Yes, we want to help these people out, but you know they shouldn't have to do that. They should have health care. You know, they should
Mm-hmm.
have these type of programs to help their lives out. So we need to help each other more. And so, yes, thank you for correcting me on that. We do need mutual aid first in order to do a general strike, because why are we telling people to, leave their jobs to go on strike but not have any resources to back them up?
Right.
So that's something I agree we need to do.
And I think that there's no chance in hell we're going to convince anybody to leave their job and go on strike if we don't have those resources already in place and let those people know, hey, we got you. Like we are going, like this community, we are going to take care of each other. I mean, I've been doing like the whole hashtag we got us because nobody else does. The establishment is not going to help you. No elected official is going to come to your aid or to your defense. Your neighbor is who is going to come to your aid and to your defense. And so I'm a big fan of mutual aid. I think that that's one thing that if you're looking to get involved in politics and you're not really sure how, and because activism can be a little daunting. It's really hard to figure out how to get started and what to do, and which I hate because it's the gatekeeper thing again. Like you'll see it all the time on Twitter. Oh yeah, well, people will ask for like your resume, like what have you done, like what have you organized, and who cares, who gives a fuck? If somebody has never organized a thing in their life and they want to, that should be encouraged, not derided. And so that
Yeah.
whole like elitism within activism is really bizarre to me.
It's
But
kind of the same route with political education. You have seen a lot of lefties like shaming people
yes,
for not reading Marx. It's like, look, guys,
yes.
not
And listen,
everyone,
theory
is
is
gonna
not
get
for
there.
everybody. Like there are some people who are just not going to care, B, understand. It doesn't make sense to them. It's a bunch of old white dudes telling everybody how to do things. And you know what I mean? Like, there are just some people who won't be reached by reading theory. And that's
And I do want to
okay.
clarify something. The one thing I do want to clarify too is like I'm not saying not to read it. All I'm
Right.
trying to say is that um,
It shouldn't be
like
required.
all I'm trying to say is that yeah, theory is great. Don't get me wrong, but I think what a lot of my DSA comrades were talking about was materialism too. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can start off talking about okay, this is what materially affects our lives. You get people going that way, and the theory too also explains to you why the capitalistic system is bad, why U.S. imperialism is bad, and the United States government as a whole. And once you intertwine the two, is great because initially, if someone, starts off that way, they're like, "Well, this was back then. I don't understand it. It's too complicated." But if you start off with what someone understands and what you can agree with, then you can expand upon. So that's what I wanted to
And I think
clarify.
it's really incumbent on leftists who have read theory and understand theory to find ways to educate people who may not, without being an elitist prick and throwing around big words and, trying, talking about the bourgeoisie and the proletariat and all that, because people tune out. There's a certain percentage of the population that will hear stuff like that and be like, okay, like, I don't want to be lectured by some snobby commie, like, I just don't. But there are ways that you can explain things that is explaining theory, or at least using theory to explain, modern day issues that, you don't even have to say this is like a Marxist philosophy. You can just explain it, and the people will internalize that information, and they may not understand that they're, getting theory thrown at them, but they've internalized that now. They have that message and that information in their brains. And so if you are somebody who likes to read theory, that's great, but just don't be a snobbish prick about it. Like, there's really no need for it. I don't understand especially in the United States, the left is like non-existent. We're so small, like actual leftist people, which again, I don't think, like, there's like the squad stand leftists who don't care about imperialism or anything like that, and then there are people who to me are actual leftists who include imperialism in their brand of leftism and understand that, we are like a global population. So, but to me, like, we just really, we need to grow. We need to grow. And so turning people down because they haven't read Marx, or turning people down or turning people away because they voted for Trump, that's really self-defeating. That's so incredibly self-defeating. I mean,
I mean, the
how on
funniest part
earth?
is
Go
the
ahead.
funniest part is I thought we were giving people kind of like passes, like a 2016, worst election of our lifetime. It was bad, but I thought we were gonna give people a break. Same thing with, well, not really the same thing with 2020, because mainstream media's whole personification is, oh, if you don't vote for Uncle Joe, then you're a bad person. Same thing with
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Joe saying if you don't vote, if you have problems figuring out if you want to vote for me or for Trump, then you ain't black. So
You ain't
apparently I'm not
black.
black. Yeah, so that it's just so ridiculous. But in general, I do believe that, if someone is honest, if someone is really honest and trying to understand what's going on, it may take time. Not everyone gets it all at once. I still have people pushing me to the left, and I'm, which is, I get it all the time with this Twitter, sometimes in my own FHL circle. I think it's great. It enhances the dialogue. It makes people understand things more, and you can come back to them and say, "Man, you are right. Can you explain this to me even further?" But if you just come off like throwing everything all at once, not only is it confusing, but it's the defense mechanism turns on.
Mm-hmm.
Like talking to my parents about certain issues. If I just hit them all at once, the propagandized defense mechanism comes in for the establishment, and then I'm, this crazy lefty. Oh, you guys don't know how to don't want to work, and all like the propaganda kicks in. So you have to bring this slowly. Like even my parents, like the last year, I've been beating them over the head slowly every day about Biden, about Hillary, about Obama, you know, and they're starting to get it, and all the strategies. I'm like, well, look, I was talking about Joe Biden. Joe Biden just hiding behind the Senate parliamentarian. He's hiding behind
Mm-hmm.
Kamala. He's hiding behind Joe Manchin because when Biden was in the Senate, he was Joe Manchin. So anytime Joe Manchin objects, you don't see Biden saying, "Hey, look, asshole, get in line." He's like, "Oh, we're going to compromise with them," because that's what he wants to do in the first place.
Yes.
Even Biden's speech, he said, "Hey, look, I was the one who said that 35% corporate tax rate was too high. I'm okay with 28." And it's like, what the fuck, Joe? Like, what is?
Yeah.
So
So many
that's
people
just
don't
my spiel.
understand it is professional wrestling. Joe Manchin is the heel. He's the guy who is, going to cause the problems because behind the scenes, that's what the Democrats want. That's their excuse. Oh, well, Joe Manchin wouldn't get in line. What can we do? Like, that's all preordained. Like that's not like just Joe Manchin, deciding all of a sudden he wants to fight for stuff or whatever. Of course not. He doesn't give a shit. That is all. It's a script. It is a script. It's a show. They're putting on a show to convince the American people that, oh, the poor Democrats, they just can't do anything because Joe Manchin is just such a dick. And he is, but it has nothing to do with what he's doing or how he's using his power or ability in the Senate to cause chaos. It really doesn't.
Did you see the interview that what did you see the segment on MSNBC with Katie Hunt and Joe on Morning Joe? Like they were literally defending Joe Manchin, saying, "Oh, well, he's in a
No,
red state. He can't go all the way left. He
that's
has to be
bullshit.
kind of centrist
Bernie
because he's in
Sanders
the
won
Republicans."
every single county in West Virginia. You cannot tell me that that's just a throwaway red state. Fuck off with that. No, not
Right.
buying it. Nope,
So
not
that was
buying it.
crazy. The mainstream media is like, oh, they're the fucking
That's not
worst. Oh,
surprising though. If you think about it, Joe, I almost said Joe Manchin, but Mika and Joe on Morning Joe, they are on camera in 2016, like giving Donald Trump a softball interview. Like he's like, okay, now don't ask me too many hard questions. And Joe's like, ha ha ha, don't worry about it. We gotcha. Like it's fine. And then they spent the next 4 years calling him a Russian agent and like freaking out about how terrible he was. You helped get him elected. You gave him
yeah.
how many hours of free coverage over the course of the 2016 election? You are responsible for him. And now you want to pretend like he's like this, amazing evil. And he's like, we have to fight against him and destroy him at all costs and nothing else matters. I don't buy it, dude. Like all of these people are in the same pockets. They are all owned and operated by the exact same people. I mean, if you look through WikiLeaks, thank you, Julian. There is a list of journalists who were working hand in hand with the Hillary Clinton campaign behind the scenes, which is illegal. They're not allowed to do that, but they were doing it. I mean, you had people like Glenn Thrush sending them articles before he would publish them to get approval. That's
But
crazy.
here's the reason. But here's the thing. The reason why the American populace really in 2016 was against WikiLeaks is because Donald Trump used that investigative journalism that they had against why the entire political elites, the entire establishment forces were bad because of their imperialism, because they're cheating with the elections. And ever since Trump spoke that truth, now they're smearing Julian Assange and all his work as, oh, he's the Trumpian people. This is why it's bad.
Julian's a Russian. He's a Russian
Exactly.
spy, whatever. Despite the fact that there's absolutely zero evidence to support that claim, it still gets repeated to this day. It's ridiculous. And then people try to say that he helped Trump get elected. And I always wonder if people do not stop and think for a second. Imagine yourself being a journalist and being a publisher, being Julian Assange, and you are given information right before an election that is damaging to one of the candidates. If you publish it, you may help the other person get elected. If you don't publish it, you're then helping the person who you have the information on. So either way, you are going to be potentially helping one candidate or the other, or damaging one candidate or the other. But as a journalist, your first and foremost concern should be, is this in the public interest? If it is, you publish it, period. End of story. That is how journalism works. If you have information in your hands and it is verifiable and authenticated and there's no question that it's legit and it is also in the public interest, that gets published. There's no question. And so he did what journalists should do. And it doesn't matter if it helped Trump or not. Hillary and the DNC shouldn't have written the damn emails. And then there wouldn't have been a problem. If they wouldn't have been corrupt as shit, they wouldn't have been exposed for being corrupt. So that argument holds no water whatsoever. And it drives me crazy. Oh, it drives me crazy. Sorry, I could go on Assange tangents all day long, especially today. Like today's a hard day for Assange supporters. So, it's been 2 years since he's been in Belmarsh. And so it's I'm feeling a little extra fired up about it today. But anyways, we've been going a little bit over an hour. I don't want to take up too much of your Sunday. Is there anything else that you want to mention or talk about or say on the show? Definitely give your co-host a shout out too. Tell everybody where they can find them. Tell everybody where they can find FHL, where they can find you, all that stuff. I know most people are probably already following you guys, but just let everybody know where they can get all that stuff.
On Twitter, we're at Fred Hampton Left. We're basically on every platform: Instagram, Fred Hampton Leftist; Facebook, Fred Hampton Leftist. We're working on Rockfin soon. We have to, just in case, because YouTube is literally killing leftist media sources. I mean, even ones who like heavily censor themselves, like Kyle Kalinski's show and Secular Talk, the Jimmy Dore show. A lot of these other big platforms, they're getting really censored hard, losing at least half their audience in terms of views, which is terrible. You could follow Socialist MMA. He's Nick. He's our co-founder. You could find Compton J. He's our co-founder. You could find Jackie Poles on Twitter at JMotherfucking Great username.
I love her.
You can find Rome on Twitter if he gets canceled by the woke left again every week.
It's like playing Where's Waldo. Like every time he gets banned, it's like, where's Rome?
Yeah, he's on his like 10th account, but
Yeah.
you guys, most of you guys know where to find Rome. If he's on Twitter. I
He's
don't even know
around.
what his username is now, but you guys know where he's
I think
at.
it's Unholy Rome right now.
Yep, Unholy Rome right now.
Subject to
we're also on
change.
Twitch. Right, we're also on Twitch for Fred Hampton Leftists as well. Find us there. Trying to think of next week's schedule. Next week's schedule, I'll be doing my first interview with really Steve Cox. Everyone should know who he is on Twitter. Yeah, so he's gonna be a lot of fun.
He's like one of three politicians that I actually like.
Yeah, I'm also gonna have on Sabby Sabs, so that'll be great. And really just give us a shot, give us really a chance, understand what we're advocating for, what policies we're going to be talking about. We're very honest, even with some of our own on the left. We go after these right-wing assholes, we go after liberals, and we're always punching up. We don't punch down. Our general message is we could work together. We have to, because we're all we have.
Right.
I mean, just look at this COVID pandemic. The billionaires have really doubled their net worth. Congress itself was given a giant fuck you by giving us only a total of $2,400 in stimulus payments, maybe, if it's not even that big. So we do have to work together. And even if you're a person that's like, okay, I'm not healthy enough, especially with COVID, to really protest or to really organize people in person. Do your job online if you can. Talk to your family members on the phone about what's going on. It definitely helps, because if you talk to one person, it goes to two, then to four. You know the odds of math. So everything helps. Just give us a shot at FHL. We're really trying our best to be honest and give you guys great content every day.
Yeah. And I know the show's new, but I'm a big fan already. You guys are doing great work. I was already a fan of everybody who hosts the show just on Twitter. So it was kind of, a given that I was going to be a fan of the show, but you guys really are doing a great job. I love the format. Again, I love the fact that there's so many different voices bringing different, views and perspectives. I think that's super valuable. And being able to have, conversations even amongst yourselves, like I said, where you guys don't agree on something. I think that's super valuable for your audience to be able to see and be like, oh, okay, well, they're on the same show, they're friends, they disagree, and look, they just had like a conversation, and maybe they agree with each other now, maybe they don't, but they didn't get mad at each other and there's no hatred involved. They just had a conversation, and that's totally possible. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the show. You guys really are doing great work. Again, I loved your interview with Margaret Kimberly. She is so awesome. So yeah, definitely check out that interview. It was just, I think just a couple days ago you guys posted that, I think.
Right.
Yeah, so definitely check that out. Again, big fan of the show. You guys are seriously kicking ass, so keep that up. And anytime you want to come back on to talk about something or promote the show or whatever, you're always welcome back on, or any of the other hosts, if they want to come on, you guys are always welcome. So yeah, thank you so much, RJ, for coming on. Everybody check out the show. I'll link to all of the stuff in the show notes so you guys can find it easier. And thanks everybody for watching. We'll catch you next time.